Now that we have finished setting up our form, we can go ahead and download the PHP form mailer script. To do that, we'll go to the Procurement's website, go to the code section, and click on the form mailer script download link. It should automatically download, so we can go to our download folder and uncompress the file. If you have a newer version of Windows, you can just double click on it and it automatically extracts it. And we'll go to our desktop, drag the file to our desktop, click yes. We can go ahead and close our download folder. Now we can open it with Notepad++. Now that the file's open, we can see the PHP code here. And for those of you who don't program or don't care to program but would still like to know how the PHP functions, we'll just quickly go over the basic layout and how everything ties together. So the server, when it calls the script, it reads from top to bottom, left to right. The first thing it's going to see is this line here, which basically tells the server this is where the PHP code starts. It'll then go to the next line that has information, which is number 3. It'll see this variable, and now a variable is a section of code that stores information. This is how we create a variable. We use a $sign and then give it a name. So anything in this script that has a $sign and text after it is a variable, and it has some information stored in it or will in the future. Let's go back up to the first one here, and the way we store information into a variable, we create it by giving it the $sign and then giving it a name, putting the equal sign, and then information on the right hand side of the equal sign. In this case, we're going to be using single quotes and double quotes. We won't be using any numbers or anything like that. Actually, I lied. Down here we'll be using a function, but either way, we're storing information into the variable. So for this one, we'll store the text contained within the single quotes here, and for the next variable, we'll also be storing the information in between these single quotes. The next line is a little bit different. It creates another variable, however, it stores the information contained within the next variable into this one. So this is the pre-made variable for PHP that retrieves the actual information from the form and will bring it into the script so we can use it later on. Now the way we do that is the $_post, and in between the single quotes we'll put the name of the input field that we want to retrieve the information from. So what that means is we'll need to copy and paste this line for the exact number of input fields that we have. In our case, that's 6 lines, 1 for the name field, 1 for the email field, 1 for country, 1 for gender, 1 for comments, and 1 for the agree checkbox. Before we get into that, we'll just leave this line the way it is and we'll modify it once we get back up there. The next one is another variable. This time we're using double quotes, and we'll use multiple lines within that, and this will become our email body. Every additional line and space and such will show up as a space or another line within the email body. So for this email body, we'll see 1 space before we see visitor's name, and then 1 space after. And we can change that to whatever we want. It's really up to us. Again, we'll get back to that in a few minutes. The next part, we create yet another variable, and this will contain information within double quotes again. The next one is another variable. However, this one will contain a function. Now this function is called mail, and this is the actual part of the code that will send the email. This basically is a pre-made function in PHP, and there's additional code that runs in the background that we don't really have to worry about whatsoever. The only thing we have to worry about is putting in the proper information into the function to get the results that we want. The 4 things that we want to put into the function in this specific order is where we want the email to get sent to, which is our personal email address, the email subject, in which this case we'll just pick a default email subject for every email, so we'll know it came from this form, from this website, and whatever details you want to add to that, feel free. Then the next part is the body, which we'll create up here. And then lastly, the header, which basically tells us who sent the email. We'll get the information from the user, and I'll show you how to store it properly and get it in here. When you get the email, it'll be from that person, but you can see that the email came from the website in the subject line, so it won't cause any confusion. And once you read it, if it's a contact form where you expect questions and you want to reply, this is the best way to do it, because it'll automatically say that the email's from that person, and you can just click reply and send the email. If you didn't have the user's email address in this section here, you would actually have to copy and paste it into the to section when you create the email. So it just saves a lot of work, especially if you're getting a lot of user submissions and you plan on responding to each one. But anyway, that's the basic and main function in this script. And lastly is the header function, which tells the website that the information has been submitted and now it's okay to go ahead and redirect the web page to another page. If you have a thank you page set up, you can put that in here, and once they click submit, the information will get sent to us and the viewer will be redirected to whatever page that you set up. With that being said, let's go up to the top and start modifying the code. Now the first variable that we're going to set up and store information into, we don't want to modify this variable, this one, or any of the other ones except for this variable. We'll create our own in just a few minutes, but the first one is the variable that will contain our email address, the one that we want to have all the submissions come to. We'll just highlight this. In my case, I'll put procureeminence@gmail.com. Obviously, you'll put in your own email address there. Next, we'll delete this, all the information between the single quotes, and this will be the default email subject. Let's call this contact form submission. Now we can go down to the actual line of code that will retrieve the information from the input field. Before we start adding 6 lines for each input field, let's delete the default information that I put in there called form sample. Just delete that. Make sure we don't delete the single quotes here. And we can delete everything except for the $sign. Now that we have the backbone code for retrieving information, let's copy that. Control C, enter, paste, do that for 6 lines, and now we can begin entering in the name of each input field. So if you remember, the first one was the name field and we named it name. And remember, this is case sensitive, so make sure you type this in exactly the way you did on the contact form. The next one is email, and then I believe it was country, then we had gender, then we had comments, and then we had agree for the agree checkbox. Now that we have all the input fields listed here, we want to create an individual and unique variable name. Because if we duplicate variable names, so let's, just for an example, we are going to call this one name anyway, so I'll just type it in ahead of time. Let's say we use name for the next one as well. Now, there's nothing wrong with this technically speaking on the PHP side, but this will be created. It'll store the information from the name field in here. Then the code will go down here. It'll be called again, and now it's going to store the information from the email input field. It doesn't combine the information, it overwrites it, which is bad in this case, because if you went ahead and named each one of these variables as name, they would all get overwritten, and the only thing that would remain was the information from the agree box. and that's all you would get. So let's just make sure that each one is unique, and you can feel free to call them the same as the name you used in the HTML submission form, because the HTML code and the PHP code is separate. So once we get the information into the PHP code here, whatever is on this side doesn't matter. It's not going to affect anything. So we can just go ahead and create the same names on each side. We just can't create the same variable names. Go down through here, create them. Okay. Now we go down to the body section. Now this is where we're going to create the body. We could get really fancy with this, but for this tutorial, to keep it simple and keep it short, let's just keep it, real basic. Let's start by, let's see here, we'll just type the text name. This will be what is actually displayed in the email itself. We'll put a dash. Actually, before we go any further, let's just delete the default there. Sorry, I should have stated that before we began on this. You can delete anything in between the double quotes here and then modify it to the way you need it. We'll type in the text name space dash space. That's exactly what it's going to look like in the body. What we're going to do next is put $name. And what this will do is display that text, but since there's a $sign in there now, it'll take the information contained within this variable and display it here. So even though we see $name in the email, we'll see the user's actual name that they submitted. That's how that works, and now we can go ahead and just add in the other information that we want to see. We can type in email, $email, and just go through the whole list here. Whoops, I was not paying attention there. I should probably pay attention when I'm doing tutorials. I'm still not paying attention. It's a good thing I'm paying attention here. That would be really bad if I left it like that. Well, it wouldn't be bad. It would just look pretty ridiculous. Now that we have this set up the right way, in my case, in your case, you can arrange this. You don't have to put it in the same order that the user submits their information. You can rearrange them to however you like. You can add extra stuff in between, whatever works for you. So now our body is set up, and now we go down to the header. Now this is where the user's email address that they submitted should go, if you have an email field. We happen to have one, so we can put $email. Now that will put their email address in the header so we can reply to that email address. Now if you don't have an email field in your comment box, you can just put in some random text there from the name of your site or whatever you want. The next step is to look at the success variable, which calls the mail function, and since these variables are already set up here, we don't have to touch those. Go down to the header section. I don't have a page set up right now, so we'll just put procureeminence.com, and that will redirect the user to my homepage. In the next tutorial, I can make a thank you page specifically for this form, and I can show you how to do that. Now we can go ahead and save it. Control S is the shortcut, where you can actually go to File and then Save. And now that we have our script, we can go to our desktop where the script file actually is. We'll open up FileZilla, and we'll bring that script into the folder that contains all of our website data from WebEasy. So for FileZilla, it's pretty neat. You can just drag and drop files right into your server folder here. So now that the script's in there, we can close that. And we can go to the browser. We've already loaded the contact form that we created earlier. So now that the script is all set up, we can go ahead and test it out. Let's just put Michael for the name. And we'll just put random email address, mike@gmail.com. We'll leave it as United States. We'll leave it as mail. For comments, we'll just put hey there. We'll agree to the terms and click submit. Might take a few seconds, and then as you can see, we got redirected to the Procureminence homepage as we expected. Now we can go to our email account, and as you can see, there's no new email, so sometimes if you don't get it right away, it may take a few minutes. It depends on how fast the server is on your hosting provider. It also depends on how often the email server refreshes, so be patient, give it some time. Shouldn't take any more than 15 minutes. If it doesn't come in after that, there's probably an issue, and feel free to get a hold of me and figure out what the problem is. Another trick is click on your inbox to refresh it, and as you can see, it worked that time. It shows that it came from Mike, and it shows the email subject here, contact form submission. We'll open the email, and you can see that it's showing that the email came from mike@gmail.com. And here you can see the name that I typed in was Michael, the email mike@gmail.com, country United States, gender male, comments hey there, and agree is just on or off.